And for those of you, again, who have been with us from the start, or for those of you just tuning in, Juliana Magalhaes was sentenced today to 10 years, but she already has served 2 or 3 years here. So she'll probably have about 6 or 7 more years to serve, and then would likely be deported back to Brazil. All right, so Matthew Torres, our reporter, has been in the courtroom through this entire trial for Brendan Banfield, but was also there this morning for sentencing. Would love to talk to Matt if we're able to get to him right now. Matt, you know, we saw a lot of emotion on our ends, but what were you seeing that we weren't able to see? I know Christine Banfield's family was not shown on camera. How were they reacting to this?
As you might imagine, they were very emotional about this, especially when we heard from Joe Ryan's aunt on the stand. When she got off the stand and went back to her seat, I noticed Christine Banfield's sister turning around, grabbing her hand and saying thank you. And as soon as we found out that Juliana Magalhaes was being sentenced to 10 years, when everyone was leaving the courtroom, both of those families, Joe Ryan's and Christine Banfield's families, just started hugging each other. You can tell just how much weight this has really put on them, the amount of stress, and having that relief. I noticed that the aunt of Joe Ryan kept looking to Joe Ryan's 81-year-old grandmother, who she referenced during her victim impact statement. And she could already tell where the judge was going when she started mentioning, while yes, they acknowledged that because of Juliana's testimony that they were able to get that guilty verdict against Brendan Banfield, but then she went through a litany of reasons why she feels she deserved the maximum sentence under manslaughter. The family members really started looking at each other. You could tell they're like, all right, this is really going to our favor. But we also saw just people around the courtroom as well. You never know exactly where the judge was going, but just based off of her statements from the beginning there, knowing that she was going to hand down the maximum sentence allowed with this, it was really telling. It was really emotional. Even when Deirdre, Joe Ryan's mother, was giving her video testimony, the family members that were in there on behalf of Joe Ryan also started to get emotional. They also started leaning on each other, putting their hands on each other's shoulders to provide comfort. This was a heavy moment during that time, but you can really see the amount of support, not only within Joseph Ryan's family, but the support that's being shared with Christine Banfield's family. You could tell just how much closer that they've gotten through this legal journey, but they know for a fact that they won't be able to get their loved ones. Just to see that Juliana Magalhaes is not just going to serve the time served under this recommendation, but the 10 years. It's compelling, and certainly sends a message even to John Carroll, the defense attorney who was briefly in the courtroom.
And Matthew, I know, we've watched this so closely, right? And we've seen so much emotion through this all. I think what was really surprising, or maybe not surprising, because Judge Oscarati has been so to the point up until this point. Were you surprised? What was the reaction when she said, no, I'm giving you the 10 years?
I think there was a level of people who were not surprised. I was able to speak with the defense attorney, Ryan Campbell, out in the hallways. We asked him, what was your reaction? Were you surprised? He says he was not surprised at all by the judge's decision. So that tells you something right there. But of course, he was going to argue to the very last moment there that without Juliana's testimony, without her cooperation at some point, even if that may be a year and a half later, that we wouldn't have gotten to the guilty verdicts that Brendan Banfield is facing. But the fact that she gave out all those lists, from having a loaded gun in her pocket, from bringing the child down to the basement as these murders were about to take place, calling 911 and then hanging up. That part, when you look around, everyone kind of got the sense where the judge was heading. But speaking to Ryan Campbell outside, he says, look, of course he gives sympathies to the families of Christine Banfield and Joe Ryan, but he just says without her, it was apparent that we may have not gotten this conviction for Brendan Banfield. So I'm sure there's a lot of mixed emotions, especially with what Juliana was facing, as she did apologize and at least say on this there that she took responsibility. we are waiting to see if at least Joe Ryan's family may be coming out. There's a likelihood that they may not be speaking. We're set up for a press conference here. Christine Banfield's family has not spoken up about this outside of the statement that they gave to me this week. They're not planning to provide any more comments after this. There is a child custody battle that is now brewing and taking place within this. So I think out of just precaution and just to avoid anything that could hamper this civil case, they're choosing not to offer any comments. But Katie, if I could just add some more comments as far as what Ryan Campbell, the defense attorney, said. We understand that Juliana has been here on a visa, and so I asked him, what does that look like as far as the immigration case, potential deportation? He did say that as far as DHS, there's been no retainers. However, there has been a request for this, but he is anticipating if she were to be taken back to Brazil, that it would be after she serves this sentence. Even though that she could be removed, there is still legal proceedings before that even happens. So whether that be during her time served in prison, or whether or not that's after she is released from prison, it's still unclear. But we know within the next few months or weeks or so, she will be transferred to a facility here in Virginia. So that is what Ryan Campbell told us soon after this sentencing.
All right, thank you, Matthew. And I know there's probably a lot going on outside of the courtroom, so we do want to let you get back to getting over and seeing if any family members do want to speak with us. Thank you so much, Matthew. Matthew has been in the courtroom since day one of this trial, and he's been watching these families. He's been kind of there in person, which is an added element, right? Because we're watching it through a screen, but he's watching it in person. And these are emotional moments. It's just been a tough situation for so many people, and our hearts go out to the family.